Chair, and thank you, Minister, for attending the meeting today, and to your officials. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Deputy Eamon O'Cuive, the Vice Chair of the Traveller Committee here in the Oireachtas, Traveller Accommodation Committee, Minister, I want to also acknowledge and thank the stakeholders who have engaged with your department on traveller accommodation issues. It's a matter we've discussed in private meetings, so I'm delighted that we can have this joint meeting of the two committees today with you and your officials. Your statement acknowledges that there have been decades of under-provision and that you, to your credit and your officials, are energetically trying to reverse and address, and I commend you for that. I have a couple of questions for you, Minister. Just in terms of the, your statement acknowledges the fact that responsibility lies with the local authorities. All local authorities have not performed equally, and there are certainly some local authorities that have significantly underperformed. And while the board and the expert group has a remit to look at the legislation and the impact of the legislation, I am concerned that there remains a lack of real-time monitoring, let's say, and real-time evaluation of performance of the local authorities. And I'm wondering if you could advise us what actions you think can be taken, maybe as part of your mid-term review, to improve the oversight and the accountability of each of the local authorities. And I acknowledge that the last amount of funding was used, but that funding was significantly reduced from what had been previously budgeted in previous years. I also would like, Minister, if you could advise us if you intend giving any instruction to the local authorities to take a specific action when developing their county development plans to identify sites for traveller accommodation, and specifically for traveller or for transient sites. It's very important, and I'm wondering if that's an action that you're considering taking. In terms of the caravan loan scheme, I welcome your suggestion that you intend extending that, but I suppose when do you anticipate making that decision, and to what extent do you see it being extended? Gormagad.
Thank you, Senator Fitzpatrick, for those questions. First of all, in relation to our expert report and the 32 recommendations that are contained within it, one of the biggest challenges that I have faced and the department in this role is the absence of clear, salient data in terms of the numbers of traveller families within our country, the types of housing accommodation they require to meet their needs. And that is why, through our expert report, we now will have very shortly a traveller-specific identifier on our social housing application forms. And secondly, to that, we're also working with the CSO in terms of the upcoming census to ensure that travellers are a key component of the work that will be carried out, and again that we get better data to inform our decision making within the department. So that has been the big challenge, but the programme board that I have established is monitoring this and also working on it. And as I pointed out, they have seized upon for their first tranche 18 of the 32 recommendations, which they have currently included in their work programme. And that is a significant body of work in doing that, which will unlock a lot of the blockages that are currently in the system. And it has the full support of my department to do that. And in relation to the budgetary measures, we have been increasing our budget year on year over the last number of years. Obviously, it's not to the scale of the pre-recession times as yet, but we are working on increasing it. And we have, as you alluded to, spent all our money last year, hoping to repeat that this year. I've issued a number of correspondence to the local authority managers and chief execs to remind them of their responsibility and that of the local authorities to the traveller community in carrying out their duty as chief executives of the local authorities. So we're working hard to do that. In terms of my role in county development plans, that's very clearly set out in legislation. The Office of the Planning Regulator is adjudicating on and reviewing all the county development plans to ensure they conform with our traveller accommodation programme and to ensure they meet the needs of the travelling community. I do know in his recent report he stated that around 94% have objectives in terms of contained within their county development plans, but we have a significant portion of work to do in that regard. And obviously the programme board will be working on reforming the Part 8 process in terms of the emergency powers that a chief executive has, and in terms of streamlining that, which will require primary legislation. And that is all led by the group that are implementing and recommending to me the work on each of those 32 recommendations. They have set out their programme of work, and there are voices, very strong voices from the traveller community on that programme board, and they were looking for an increased number on the board, which we acceded to. So we've really shown our commitment and our energy to work with them and ensure that we get all those recommendations implemented.